Thank you for coming, Nico. So,
that was a pretty difficult one to go after. After Ilka is not so easy. Pretty impressive. And I'm half Finnish, so and I'm going to Helsinki actually as well at the end of the month for the big Slush startup conference. So that's why I can relate a little bit.
Performance under pressure then. I mean, 2016 Formula One world champion, Nico Rosberg. I think I should start with just saying, why are you here?
Well, I'm not racing anymore because I achieved my mission and my life dream. So that was mission complete. Very, very happy. It was an awesome moment, perfect moment for me to move on into the next step in life. And then Wired, because I love the magazine, covers all my passions, all the four pillars. And mainly also, I'm really into startups at the moment because being a fan of cars, cars are going to change our planet. Yeah, in the moments coming up very soon now, and it's an incredible time in that space. So much happening, so much innovation, exciting startups popping up left and right and center. So that's really just a passion, and love to be involved in companies that are founded which will change our planet. You know, and so that's the connection.
Excellent. Well, we'll get to that later on. Let's start with the early years then. I mean, as Greg mentioned, karting from the age of 6, you've been racing for 21 years. So from a very early point, there must have been a tipping point where you realized that you were different to normal 6-year-old children. When was that, actually?
That sounds a bit odd, but anyways. No, I just had, from my dad, genetically inherited a natural gift to drive racing cars. And what's required for driving racing cars is the hand-eye coordination. That's the main thing, probably. And very, very quick, being able to process very quickly, I think, in the brain at everything that's coming at you. I think that's also a skill. So just inherited that and noticed pretty young that I was pretty decent in driving a racing car.
Well, also honing that skill, those methods is part of that. I mean, you need to be a champion and have that competitive edge. You need to actually make the most of what nature has given you, of course, and part of that with the split-second advantages is also training the body, training the mind, and you have supposedly a personal method of this. You took this upon yourself to do this rather than rely on other people. Can you tell us a little bit about what you actually did?
Yeah, for me to become the best in the sport, it really required total dedication and dedicating my life to winning that next race, to winning that championship. So it was really no compromise. And I really saw that that's something quite powerful to achieve something in life. I also took a mental trainer, for example, because we're training so much our body all the time. And in our sport, having a brain doctor, you're seen as a bit of a loser. So I took a mental trainer anyways. I was one of the first guys to do that and really, really dug into that and really tried to improve my whole mental approach. And I learned a hell of a lot along the way. I can only recommend to take a look as well for all of you into this personal development sphere. So much out there, it's amazing. And me, mainly what I learned was, first of all, to simplify life and really have a focus on very few important things that matter. That helped me a lot. I even dug into meditation and everything, which was very powerful. Meditation not going into Google land, but meditation practicing awareness and presence, and learning to be aware and present to what you're feeling, what your thoughts are. And that was incredible for me in the decisive moments. I just had that little bit more focus and clarity in mind to not make any mistakes and to bring that championship home. So great experiences for me. That
mental discipline, do you think it had did you see a tangible benefit from it rather than just feeling better, feeling more focused and centered? And actually, did you see on the track, did you see a benefit from it? So
that's the downside and the difficulty about it. It's so you don't see immediate tangible results. You know, it's really a long-term process. And my tangible, what I can see is that in the incredible intense pressure, probably the highest pressure I've ever had in my life, in those moments, I didn't make a single mistake. And that's where I get my evidence for the fact that all the work that I put in must have been massively beneficial.
Staying with that, the mental aspect of racing, just for a moment, other racing drivers have talked about how their perception of reality alters when they're racing. Some people talked about time slowing down, things like this. Have you experienced this as well? I mean, also pain thresholds change apparently.
Mainly with respect to pain, I can go into that, yeah. It's incredible. Being in a racing car, your adrenaline levels are like exploding, yeah? The hands are shaking, it's out of control. And so your capacity to feel pain is completely reduced, yeah? And so I do things in a racing car, and I go into pain in a way that I would never, ever be able to do in a normal situation. And one example is that during one race, we lose up to 4 liters of fluids. So sweating, 4 liters, yeah, in the space of 2 hours. Every doctor here would say that starts to become very critical, yeah, for our health and for our capacity to even still function properly. And it's absolute torture, yeah, I mean, it is torture.
Sounds like a Wired Features music.
Okay, I didn't say that. Anyway. Yeah, and it's just the adrenaline that allows you to get into those zones.
We're talking about getting into the zones, obviously, and the careers of ups and downs. We have a couple of video clips that Nico has chosen to talk through and what going on. The first one here is from the 2016 season in Abu Dhabi, and it focuses on a particularly bold overtaking manoeuvre on Verstappen. So can we possibly run that and see, and then talk us through it?
Yeah, so here I'm stuck behind this, it's the crazy Dutchman, who's like, he's from a long way back. Verstappen on the outside, Rosberg on the inside. They come close, but they don't quite touch. Verstappen now under pressure again. That's a brilliant exit from Nico Rosberg. And as they swoop round that left-hand king, Rosberg puts himself up into second place. Fabulous move there from the championship leader. Verstappen's going to come back at him. The crowd rise to their feet in the grandstands. Rosberg fends off Verstappen.
So how do you remain calm when that's going on?
I still get goosebumps watching that. Because in that moment decided if I would win the championship or not. If I didn't manage to pass, I lost the championship. If I crashed, I lost the championship. If I passed him, I had a chance to win. So incredibly intense moment. And I remember that my foot was shaking on the throttle pedal. I was so in extreme situation. I'd never had that in my career before, never had it after again. Well, I stopped after that, so of course I didn't have it after. So my foot was bouncing on the throttle pedal from stress, from nerves. Insane, insane. But again there, it was experience, preparation, and just, it just felt right in that moment to give it a go. Went for it, worked out.
Talking about feeling it right, is that a moment where you spot a gap and you've gone for it, and you're almost, the training is kicked in so much, you're almost not aware you've done it, or you're halfway through manoeuvre, you're going, oh, I'm overtaking, or is it something different? Is it all far more disciplined than that? It
really depends. Instincts are very, very important in our sport, because very often you don't even have time to think, yeah? You have to follow your instincts and go for it. In this case, though, I had a very, very long straight, and already at the beginning of the straight, I had started to change all my settings on my steering wheel, because if you go for an attack, you can use very different settings in terms of braking to if you're just driving normally. And I knew I was going to go for the attack that lap, so even at the beginning of the straight, started switching all the different settings to get prepared, you know? And then at the end, it was like touch and go, because I was pretty far away and just launched into there, and a bit of luck and whatever else, and
well, it's more than luck. We mentioned...
The more you practice, the luckier you get, right?
That's right.
There you go.
It's more, we mentioned, yes, it's more than luck there. We mentioned before, we touched on your father and genetics, and I just want to read out whether this sort of level of skill and ability is down to whether you are practicing or whether it's just innate ability within you. Let me just read these are just some of the F1 families with multiple members who have been racing at the top of the game. The Rosbergs, the Andrettis, the Villeneuves, the Piquets, the Fittipaldis, the Brabhams, the Sennas, the Stewarts, the Schumachers, the Hills, the Verstappens, and I can go on. That's not the end of the list, actually. What is happening here is how much of your success is genetic?
I'm a firm believer that genetics are quite a big part of this, quite a big part of us. I would probably, if I had to guess, I would say 66% genetics, 33% nurtured. I would go to that extreme. And in our sport, I mean, there it's very, very clear. Even the Verstappen example now, which is the crazy Dutchman that you saw in the video, trust me, you don't ever want to come across him on a racing track. I had the good fortune of that, but anyways. And his dad was a successful driver too, you know, and now the son is a successful driver, because it's the genes that pass on, and it's a skill that you have in your genes. And I think that applies to many, many different things.
Would you actually go as far as to say you drive the same way as your dad?
No, because that's where the nurture comes in.
Yeah.
My dad is a complete nutcase, and I'm I'm a bit more chilled out. So he's out of control when he drives his car, and I'm more in control, more relaxed, smooth.
Let's take a look at the next clip that Nico has chosen for us. This is at Barcelona.
This goes into failure, which
this goes into
which
failure,
Ilka from Supercell just touched on to quite nicely.
A certain teammate. Roll the VT.
Outside goes Nico Rosberg into turn 1, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, then sets in Daniel Ricciardo, and then Sebastian Vettel ahead of Max Verstappen. Good start from Carlos Sainz, he's ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Round turn 3 we go, and it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate. The two Mercedes come together as Hamilton tried to pass on the inside, and he can cover his hands over his eyes, and he won't want to see that again.
Yeah, not a good moment.
I was going to say, what was actually going through your mind at the time there?
First of all, just praying that it doesn't turn out to be majorly my fault. That's the first thing. But a bit of background: we have 1,500 people, employees, building 2 race cars. 1,500. It's an incredibly massive organization. 300 million budget, and then there's the 2 of us there, about to win the race, and we just take each other both out. So this is a major, major disaster. And then Red Bull, the little energy fizzy drinks, they win that race. So for Mercedes. For Mercedes, the proud German Mercedes, that's an absolute disaster. So internally after that, none of this goes out into the world, right? What's said at Wired stays at Wired.
That's right.
Very good. I'm very happy with that. I'll get into big trouble. No, major disaster. However, just as Ilka was saying from Supercell, I've experienced that myself. Failure can be something very, very awesome as well, because in failure we learn most. In failure is a big motivator as well, because we never want to fail again in that same way, because failure is horrible. So it really is a driving force, and I experienced that. For me, failure has been so powerful. Also losing to Lewis in previous races, never ever did I want to lose again. So it made me reach out in a motivation which I didn't even know I had, to improve myself, to grow, to be even quicker, even faster. Failure. And in our society, that's a bit. I was in Silicon Valley 2 months ago.
Yeah. Oh.
And big difference to there. Failure is not seen as so negative over there. Huge difference, yeah?
Yeah.
Failure in our society, you're a loser if you fail. Over there, it's normal. It's normal to fail. That's what people expect. They expect you to take risks, go out there, fail, because they know that you fail 10 times, you'll then, on the 11th time, you'll make it happen. But
in Formula One, lots of failure you see on the track. The first thing the driver will say afterwards is, "It wasn't my fault." Now,
true, yes.
But that's not your view, as I understand it. So, like, there is a. How important is it to actually recognise that you are to blame and to move on from that, or to learn from that?
It is massively important, yeah, and that is some of the weaknesses that some of my competitors have as well in Formula One, because the general Formula One driver is a big narcissist, in love of himself, and thinks he's the best in the world, and it's always the other guy's fault. That gives you a certain strength in this crazy environment where you're judged by millions and millions of people every little moment what you're doing.
Yeah.
Gives you a strength, but it's also a weakness, because you don't judge yourself, you don't question yourself as much.
Yeah.
I was more on the other side. I'm more sensitive, less narcissistic, at times difficult.
Yeah.
But the strength then questioning myself all the time, trying to get that improved step by step.
Speaking of co-workers, we all work with people we don't like.
Can you name some names?
No, I just because my boss is sitting right down there.
But you like him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We all work with people we don't like. How does that happen when so much in Formula One, where each driver is almost an island? You almost have your own. Yet you are working with co-workers and colleagues, but you're not. How is that different? How do you manage to get on with people you don't really want to get on with?
Again, an incredible experience for me, because as an F1 driver, when you're 20 years old, you go straight to the pinnacle of this incredible organization, yeah? In one row with the really experienced 50-year-old leader who's just so damn impressive, and you're there as a 20-year-old, so it's an incredible life experience. What I learned from our Formula One team, though, not too, well, a bit dissimilar to Supercell approach, but maybe not too far away, it's really this. Mercedes has now rewritten the history books. Yeah, I mean, it's been the most successful F1 team now in I think even in the history. Yeah, the success now the last 4 years, insane, never seen before. And their leadership style is really empowering. It's not dictatorship. They've moved away from that totally, and it's empowering the employees. And that's been fascinating to see how all the employees that I've been working with over the years, suddenly they grew, you know, and took on responsibility, and impressive what they were then able to do, yeah, because they got the trust from the leader. The leader allowed them to make mistakes. There's no blaming, and that was so powerful for the whole organization to move forward. So I believe in that as well.
Excellent. Well, just to finish up, now after 21 years of racing, reaching the pinnacle of that with the Formula One championship in the bag, world champion, then to retire and obviously start a new phase of career all over again. Now, I know you're interested in entrepreneurship, that's why you're here, innovation, and as Nico just said, he visited Silicon Valley. You've met companies like Tesla, Waymo, which is Google's autonomous car arm, electric vehicle charging company ChargePoint. I've seen you chatting with the people out here, collaring, you know, various innovators out there to try and talk to them. This is clearly something of interest to you, but what can your experience from the world of F1, how much of that can you carry to an entrepreneurial career?
Well, it is a new space for me. Change is always fascinating. I'm in change myself. It's where you learn most about yourself, I find. So it's been a very interesting ride, and this is just following my passions. I'm passionate about this, passionate about seeing startups that are going to change the world. And I think I can bring something to the table. Let's see. Time will tell. In a few years' time, if I've successfully gone into some startups and supported them. Anyway, that's my dream. That's what I would like to do. So I'm going for it.
Nico, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for your attention.